All right, welcome back for the conclusion of my accuracy. Well, we're at accuracy skills, but all of the skills in Mordheim, the generic ones. Um, there's a lot more. Obviously, the warband unique skills, and also um, like spells, right? And there's character unique ones. You could rank characters. There's like so much you could still do. But we're going to finish up here with accuracy, what I consider kind of the secondary part of the martial set. Just move that a little bit. I guess it doesn't matter. And we start with a lot of the skills are like kind of symmetrical, I was noticing. And we start off the bat with Vital Shot, Vital Strike. In the passives, there's um, Break Defenses and Quick Incision. So that's kind of what I mean. Um, which makes it easy to kind of do, which is cool. You start off with Vital Shot, which is 15% critical hit chance on a ranged attack and 30% mastery, and the same for melee. So again, these like mirrored with pinning and crippling shot. They're both 3 and 9. I like that they're 3 and 9. I can't remember if they've always been there. I know they've been buffed from vanilla so that they're more useful. Um, Let me see the icons again. One's a it's a knife. Okay, it's these guys. Um, you don't see too many like basic crit builds. It's tough, right? You get into basic skills, you're talking about like henchmen, and they're naturally going to be like worse at things. And so in this case, they'll be worse to hit, they'll be worse to crit. But if they do, it's like humiliating. Like you just got crit by henchmen, right? And a lot of times, heroes will just take the mastery version. Why would you stop at that when you get to have more? More is better than less. So it always gets really awkward to rate some of these things. And a lot of times I say both are like in the good tier, and a lot of times one's better than the other. In this sense, I think like one's this will be lower. Like it's good. It might even be okay actually. I don't think there's too many like henchmen taking a vital shot. It gets back to what we just discussed. Like you'd rather take like those debuffs. Like I'd rather take like knee shot, crippling shot, hand shot. I'm not gonna like shoot in the dark and hope for a vital shot, but it's usable. You could. You'd probably be really annoying if you got me. I'd be like, you motherfucker, you got me. Because with the vital shot and a henchman's base problems with like stats, you're gonna run up to like not even overcoming the opponent's resilience, luck rune, base toughness. The AI is a different story, but like it, it it just struggles to get to anything where you want it to be getting at. Now we were talking about a bit basic sharpshooter, and then taking you could see an undead warband that has ghouls, or you have a wolf priest that is naturally just going to strip crit resistance with some skills, and now that vital shot can pay dividends, and that's okay. That's okay. It's an okay skill to use. I've talked over and over that okay is like my cutoff. Like this has uses in the game. You can make builds around it. It's okay. You strategize around it. It's fine. I would say mastery is like elite in my opinion. Um, Specifically marksman. I've been talking about brethren over and over. The other one being a mutant archer. Like finally, it's not the brethren. The brethren can't use his lurker and vital shot. So now you have a mutant who can pick up a word stone, stack sharpshooter. You got a marksman who can miss a few shots or hits. Either way, he's rewarded with sharpshooter or more hit chance, and then take a vital shot, and you get a crit. And I've been talking about ballistic skills, ranged units have so few buffs. Melee skills, you have frenzy, you have daredevil, you have spells. You have all these ways to increase melee damage that ballistic just does not have. Well, we finally kind of come around. There's the two I talked about: Wordstone, Warp, Warp Rage, I think it's called for the Verminkin, and like the Captain's Order or something it's called for the Smuggler, which is nerfed in the mod anyway. But that was it. So now, if you crit something, you do your max damage roll. You bypass all armor. We've been talking about Eagle Eyes. There's 0 armor now. And you can start to talk about your carnage buffs. Deep Wounds, which is in here, which is increasing your ballistic skill damage. It is if you could roll a comet, crit the comet, and then just buff its damage significantly. This is where you're getting into how you increase range damage and make range terrifying for your opponent. And Mastery Vital Shot is a big part of that. It's not godly. We reserve godly for like why I would always take this. This is now a specific build, but for that specific build, it is elite. There's argument between Sniper Shot and Vital Shot, which I've had back and forth. We talked a bit about Sniper Shot with Bullseye and Aim. Well, Mercs get Sniper Shot. Mercs also self-correct with Marksman. Marksman, you can talk about smugglers and young bloods, which exist in their realm. Marksmen are always superior. They just are. You can use the other ones, but there's no reason not to have the Lad's Got Talent Marksman. It's better. It just is always better because this autocorrect feature, the skills, the stats like ballistic and accuracy get to where you want them to get. Like you can have 15 and 15. These are special units that get 15 and 15 in their marshals. The Lad's Got Talent Marksman is that special ranged unit that does that. I think maybe like with a book, like a Witch Hunter Captain and Witch Hunter maybe do this. But they don't autocorrect, right? You get there with an Assassin Adept, a Champion. They can get there with like, maybe a Dreg gets there with like melee. And maybe you can with the Dreg with the ranged. He's like a slept on ranged crit archer. But they can maybe get there. Anyway, what was I getting at? These are special units that can get all that. And they can unlock a lot of the things and damage and shots. So the Marksman Sniper Shot versus Vital Shot. The Sniper Shot adds hit chance, just like Aim did. But if he misses, he's auto-correcting, and just in my opinion, one miss gives you 10% hit chance. And now Vital Shot is already superior to Sniper Shot, except Sniper Shot gives plus 60% range damage when it crits. And that's significant too, because you can take Carnage, Longbow, or Slain if you want, and then have that Sniper Shot. And it really takes it to the maximum damage you'll get. Now it starts to become personal preference. There's probably some math involved. I think Paranoia probably did it, hopefully, where Vital Shot and Sniper Shot, where do those equal out with the Marksman? Because in this case, we're only talking about the Marksman who has the Chain Shot autocorrect feature. And like, in my opinion, I feel like the Vital Shot is superior to the Sniper Shot in the Marksman. You could say for the other builds, maybe that Sniper Shot is better because they don't have the autocorrect feature, and then they get that damage on the crit. But you can get off 4 Vital Shots versus 3 Sniper Shots, so you have more chances to roll the dice, and the autocorrect comes into play. You're missing that 60% damage on crit, though, and I think with everything else, the extra shot, the extra rolls, I think overall the damage maybe gets there with the Vital Shot versus the Sniper Shot. You could take either. Long story short. Short story long, maybe. That's where we go with Vital Shot. I think it's a really elite skill in doing damage on ranged units. Now we get into the melee. We just talked about melee has many other ways to do damage. So crits aren't as important. Melee, just like we talked with Overpower, has to get through stances. That's a problem. So it inherently makes these things like lower, in my opinion. And the same thing, you don't really see Vital Shot Henchmen. You're not going to see Vital Strike Henchmen. It's okay. We just talked about ghouls, and it's the same principle. You could strip it, take away the crit resistance, throw in a vital strike. There's some builds like novices where you can maybe take it. They go high accuracy. If they land it, great. You can buff melee crit chances more than ranged with like Sigmar's Might and the Wolf Priest again. Wolf Priest clearly being a fuel for this. So it's okay. I don't think you're going to use it. It can be a stepping stone to mastery. It's fine. You have to use it on those heroes. It's okay. It's whatever. I would say mastery, you start to struggle now. If you use a dual wheel build, the math is, we've talked about mastery ad rush. It's awkward. You can't do it 3 times anymore. You could in vanilla. All right, go fuck yourselves. Dual wielders and great weapons. That's bad. That makes it worse. So you have single-handed users. To me, the dream one is a mutant. He's the one I always go to. He gets a crusher. There's probably some rat versions, but I like the mutant with a crusher mutation. He can attack 3 vital strikes, pick up a stone. He can get some really good vital strikes in. I think that's great on him. It's a really good option for him. It's rare you see a tank that can actually like fuck someone up too, and that's what it does. But I just don't see it getting too much use melee-wise because of what we then just talked about. The other reason the mutant's great is if you have a web of steel, he doesn't care. He's going to go right through it. So you can get more use out of your vital strikes. And so in that sense, I think it's kind of niche. It's a step above okay. You can get some hits in. You're going to take with any kind of like melee crit build, but melee crit builds aren't good, let's be honest. Like the ranged crit version is much better. If you want to increase damage with melee builds, you take Daredevils, Frenzies, other things. But where Vital Shot, it's essential on range to increase damage. Vital, it's not as essential for melee, Vital Strike. So it's good. It's fine. It does its job. You can make builds with it. They're not going to be like game-breaking builds. You're going to be sad you're losing the OP. You can't attack 4 times like you can with a ranged. I can't think of a way to attack. There might be some unique situations where you stun, disengage, and can charge 3 times because you have the Wolf Priest buff, and you can then use introspection, I don't fucking know. It's not pretty to get there. The mental gymnastics. And we talked about the nerf to mastery ad rush, which is where this comes into play now. And knocks, and that's got down field effects, and here you're seeing it with Vital Strike. These changes aren't made in a bubble, and it's now affected Vital Strike. Then you have Feint and Precise Strike. These are coming in at 6 and 12. Feint, melee attack that deals regular damage. That's kind of weird because it talks about damage. Target has minus 10% chance to hit melee for 2 turns. So he said over and over, you don't have to hit. He thinks if you're parried or dodged, it doesn't apply, but you just like swing it. And if it's not dodged or parried, this applies. That's where like deals regular. It makes you think like you have to land it. And this skill has changed from vanilla where it was useless because you would feint. You would only use it for counterattacks. You would save your OP, go up against the AI, and then feint as a counterattack. If you played in PvP against a player and you feinted them to end your turn, they would just use insult or delay, or it would just take away the feint thing. Just like if you got ambushed, if you just do another skill, it takes away that ambush penalty or the charge penalty, things like that. So feint was not good in vanilla. Now it's awkward as fuck. It's weird because you feint once and it lasts forever. What? But that's just kind of how it had to work. And you can't take it on the same. It's not stackable. So a henchman can take it. I love that this is negative and that's just then not. It's kind of weird. It should be negative 15%. It's for symmetry. But then, if he's taking notes, then you can get minus 25%. So this is like hand shot except the melee version. Pretty much. And in that regard, I think it's just as good. and I had hand shot like decently up there, but if it's a melee resistance unit, it definitely wants to get in combat. So I think I was saying I was gonna put it a little higher, and I think it is like great. I don't want to say it's elite. I've gone back and forth on this. I struggle to this day. My augur literally in this tournament, I'm like, is basic enough? Basic's probably enough, right? I don't need mastery. But then you're like, well, 5% is greater than 10%. And I don't have to apply it every other fucking turn. And if 2 units get on me, then I have to apply it to other. And the math is like, yeah, I can like it's kind of worth it because it's 5% more, and then I get more OP long term to do other things. And in this case, she also has mastery armor break. I don't know if you guys have noticed that yet. So if I'm not fainting as much, I can armor break more. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's good. He'll edit it in. So the other reason I think they're both great is I also have novices running around. This is something I do a lot on the sisters I found. There's other units you can, or warbands you can do this on. But the novices like to have some accuracy. They like to kind of be melee resist. Mine don't have it yet. I do have a skill point open, and I don't know. I've taken armor break, and I think they all took righteous fury because what I was doing. I want them to kind of miss so they gain dodge. Plus, I'm also using, and this is the case where I took righteous fury, but in maybe most builds, I would take armor break with them because I can get to the 9 accuracy, and I think I would take basic feint, and I still might because I have decisions to make with them. But then you're starting to like, do I armor break, feint, righteous? You know, you're running out of math with henchmen. But I think taking that unit, putting the feint on, and then having the augur with the mastery feint. If I put this on some ogre or demon, 25% is significant. It helps the melee resist novice too, right? Who also likes to dodge. So you're getting increased benefits. So I think they're both viable and both great. In this case, I don't think one's higher than the other. I think both are just usable, and stacking them's great. And there's benefits to having it 3 turns and 5% more. Allows you to do other things with that melee resist unit. Maybe casting spells because it's a mage that's melee resistance. Doing this armor break like I'm talking about. If my augur just uses mastery feint once, she can now do 4 regular attacks and maybe land some innervations, right? Because she's probably tanking a dangerous unit. So how is she going to be useful to the team besides like tanking this dangerous unit? If I could land some Sigmarite Warhammer innervations, I could take off a significant amount of magic resistance and allow my other units to start function. So that's, again, why I think mastery is just as viable and good and important to have. So precise strike, this is such a funny one. It was a big deal, especially because I think in this Battle of Behemoths, right? It's funny how a tournament like changes things. But in this format, like they had a lot of impressives running around wanting to land daredevil hits and be ordered and stuff. And everyone's like, oh my god, this precise strike with weak spots breaking the meta. It's so broken. I can't believe this was so powerful. And I rarely see it taken again. Like everyone like kind of forgot. Paranoia was brave enough to be like, it's fine. It's okay. You're just seeing it in its most ideal form. And I think that's still the case. Like, this is for an impressive or a damage dealing unit, usually with Daredevil, that also just does not want to be locked down. It doesn't want to fuck around. Like, I see you're trying to build up your Serenity tank. I'm going to knock it down this turn before it gets going. And that's where precise strike comes from. The punishment is, okay, you want to do that? You have to master this skill. You have to use more OP. And then we're at this awkward, you can't take mastery adrenaline rush, so you can only maybe do it 3 times, right? But most melee resistance builds don't have that much HP. You don't need to land that many. Maybe you can 2-turn it by swapping to daggers instead. So you're like precise strike, precise strike, precise strike, add rush, swap to daggers, get fucked, you're dead. I'm going to get you bitch next turn. That's where precise strike comes in. I think it's really good at what it does. Um, all these like melee 3 OP things are really good in the mod. I think they're all in like a happy place. What I call like skill attacks, or I've talked about it with the, I mentioned it because I've talked about the flagellant. I wish the flagellant's passive was skill attacks cost 1 less OP. And everyone's like, well, what about Burn the Witch or something? And I think I can't remember the solution. It could have it cost 1 more S. I can't even remember now. There's a way to like make that work, or just exclude it. But anyway, so then he could do like precise strikes 3 times with like a flail, or could have a great weapon, precise strike, while still using a great weapon. I still think that'd be really cool. It's still a henchman that you can't, lad's got talent. That's what I think limits it. So is getting plus 10% hit and dodge berry bypass breaking like a flagellant? I don't think so. But I mean, anyway, I digress because I'm talking about like skilled attacks, or whatever the term you want, like attacks that have benefits to them, so they cost 1 more to use. So do a lot of henchmen, I guess is where I was also going to use this. I don't really see it. It's again one of these awkward stepping stone kind of skills. It gives plus 10 hit chance, which brings us back to combat focus. Like, God, terrible. So if you can insult and precise strike, maybe you're getting somewhere. Maybe like the Skaven want it, but I think there's so many others that I don't think I can call it okay. I think it's not good. Like, I think they'd rather kidney strike, jaw strike, feint, literally any other thing than that. I think this is the least useful henchman attack, special attack. The mastery, though, you start to get into good to great territory. I think it's good because it's got, I talk about this a lot, it's got a narrow use window. It's a niche thing. You have a daredevil build and maybe you're not really good at totally bypassing dodge because of some reason. Like the ogre's maybe not, well, no, he has a warlock that can help him. Like a crypt horror, I feel like is kind of capped at dodge bypass. Can't use your spears, like dual wield, right? There's no real spells that help them. Well, is Rotten Stench help? Death Stench maybe does. But whatever. You're getting my point. There's some that are just struggling a little more for that dodge bypass, so maybe they take precise strike. Like the Executioner, you throw down your totem. But maybe you really want it to the extreme. You can take precise strike. And then no melee resist unit would ever bother you. So it's a good skill. It has uses. I don't think like you're like always constantly the narrow use window just brings it down, but it's a good skill. It's perfectly well designed. It does its job. You're probably going to hit things if you take it, and you'll probably stack it with some other to hit things. Armor break. We just talked about Eagle Eyes, and then I'm looking at a melee version, and it's like, wow, that is significantly better. Why? Right? Now, Eagle Eyes was for the unit using it bypassed 5 or 15% armor. That's great. Okay, great. Whatever. I fucking hated it. It was awful. Armor break, 10%, twice as much, 20%, 5% more. Everyone else gets the benefit from it. That's a better thing, and it's a higher number. Now, it's under 9 and 15 accuracy. That's kind of the drawback. The other drawback, now you're in melee. But like, if I want my henchman zealot, because we always talk about marksman, we're gonna make a henchman zealot. He wants to do some range damage. You know, because we're always fucking talking about marksman. There's other ranged henchmen, which is what we have to consider these with too. It's very important. They don't get a crossbow, do they? So they're not gonna get a crossbow of perforation. What you're gonna want is someone to armor break them. And that's going to help him do more damage, right? Would I also take Eagle Eyes at 5%? No. No, it's probably not great. Still, right? Even with that armor break. The heroes can get crossbow pistols, which is something, right? So they'll probably take that Mastery Eagle Eyes, which is useful, but not the fucking basic. So armor break does more than Eagle Eyes for some random reason. I don't know if it would. I don't see how it would murder someone to make basic Eagle Eyes 10% and then still keep the 15. I think originally argued why not just make them both 10 and 20? Why not mirror things? I keep talking about mirror things. Ranged isn't that much more broken than melee. This is more powerful because everyone can use this. And I like to pick on Lias, and I was talking about the mod, my weapon mod pack, and I made a hammer that's sundered armor. It was the Sigmarite hammer model from Bertha. It's actually slightly different, and I put it in the mod. And it always bothered me that flails are trash, especially now. And witch hunters and sisters are kind of the tanky melee units, but they really struggle with armor. Really, they do. It's like annoying, even though they want to grind out victories, but they can't really quite grind out victories. So I was like, let's make this hammer that each time you hit, it takes away like 3% of your armor over and over. And it's like, oh, that's so broken. Everyone can then get that benefit from it. And I'm like, well, why doesn't everyone and their mother take armor break? Because you don't see that, even though it is pretty good. Now, part of it is it's only 10%. That's not a huge amount. It's not stackable. The other part is it's 9 and 15 accuracy. That's really awkward to get to. But taking 30% armor off is pretty decent. I think I've said over and over, I think it should be like 25% for 3 turns. Passive versus active passives. Passives are weaker. Melee versus ranged. Lower requirements versus higher. I think he's trying to rationalize why 5% matters. Again, 10%, that ranged guy will be utilizing it. He's like, thanks, I'll take that 10% armor off. I'll shoot him in the face now. Appreciate it. I feel like something that everyone else can use, it's the same thing I just talked about insult. This is the same trap that I think the Eagle Eyes fell into and why combat focus was bad. That's just that one guy's getting benefit. Why don't I just insult you and everyone can get benefit? And I think this is the case for armor break. You're going to land it. If you're taking it, you're going to land it. Henchmen take it a lot. I see like Skaven love it. I think it's good. Only because it's 10%. Like that's not a massive amount. And you kind of have to stack it to get the full benefit. And I think this is good too because it's only 20%. And it's 3 turns. But 15 accuracy is like a punishment. So I think there's only few units that take it. I think ironically melee resistance builds, if they can get that shield specialist at 3 and 9, you get your 9 weapon skill. You're going into it anyway because you want feint. What is 3 more for mastery armor break? Then you're bringing some utility to your team. So they might not land it. You're going to swing a few fucking times because you can't hit a goddamn broadside of a barn. But you'll eventually land an armor break probably, and it will last 3 turns. So I'm liking it on my augur. I've tried on other melee resistance builds. And then the other are these very special units like champions and dregs and stuff, assassin adept, that people generally don't even like though also. So they're bad builds. So like I think they're just both good. The numbers aren't high enough to move it way up here. You're not always taking it obviously. And I don't even think it's great. I think it's, you know, it's good. I don't know. It's better than okay. I think there's just a lot of it's difficult to get to these numbers at 15 accuracy. And then you're going to struggle to hit the target because you've invested in accuracy. And then it's not that amazing of an armor stripping, in my opinion. When like a spell does the same, Weapons of Destruction, which cost me 2 OP and also increases damage and I can just flick it everywhere. Yeah, I'm going to fucking hate armor break a bit compared to it, right? Like it's so much easier to just, Curse of Rust, Weapons of Destruction, Sorcerer's Curse. This is easy. Then like you're struggling to get this 15 accuracy and land it. Yeah, it makes you like hate it a bit more. So then you got headshots. We've talking about this with ballistic skills. It's changed from vanilla to be harder to land, as it probably should have been. Ranged attack that has a 40% less chance to hit, but rolls a stun test basically, and then 10% for mastery. It costs 2 more OP. It's overpower except ranged, and we talked about why overpower was so bad. It's because overpower, you had to also get through stances. You have to get into melee. You're putting yourself on the line. Where this ranged, you can do this from safety of your comfort of your couch, up on the second floor with an overhead rune of flight. This used to be like extremely standard in vanilla because there's only minus 30% chance to hit. What you would do is you take like a rune of flight marksman up the steps. You'd have to land your first stop because chain shot would stack as you hit. So you do a regular shot, hope to hit the target, gain 10% hit chance, and then do a headshot with your henchman. So you'd only have minus 20% chance, but which was canceled by flight, and you're like actually gaining, overhead. You could take all these things, and it was really strong in vanilla. So it needed nerfed. I still think it's good. You can still do these things. If you have a marksman that just keeps missing, you're quickly going to like negate any of the penalty. Again, we're back to marksman. But the other units like Skaven and whatnot need that overhead and things like that for henchmen to try to land it. I think the mastery is great. It's like a meta we've gone away from. It has its turns. Like people won't use it, and then they'll use it again, and that person will fuck up some guys in a tournament, and they'll be like, God, that headshot. And people take stun, potions and droughts of clarity, and they'll figure it out. And, in the next tournament, they forget again, and things like that. I think that's where just headshot lives. Yeah, and you can fail on purpose with the marksman by taking early low shot chances, especially against the AI. You're okay. It's fine. No one's even injured. Everyone has full health. Elias is talking about that, and I do that too. You just, oh, no, I missed. And you're almost like, why'd you land that 30% shot, you asshole? Well, I guess you did damage. So, I mean, again, this is marksman. We always talk about marksman. They're the gold standard. Other units, it's fine. Minus 10% is good. But again, you start to talk about like special, unique builds. Like getting 15 accuracy isn't easy. So it's difficult to get to those break points and still have decent hit chance. Like the smuggler is going to be ass at it because she has gunpowder, and then she'll have like no ballistic skill, and there's not a lot of weapons that help with the ranged gunpowder hit chances. So it's just an awkward one overall for certain builds. But again, I think there's only because I've like played this game forever. I know there's like a meta around, like overhead and headshots that we've kind of gotten away from. That I think that's why I wanted to mention it in these tier rankings. That I think people need to realize existed with overheads, runes of flights, headshots, and things, and they can exist. Just because no one's using them right now doesn't mean they don't exist. They've existed. They're viable. They're very viable in PvE. Extremely viable in PvE. So that's the active. So we go into the passives, where we have 2 mirrored skills again: break defenses and quick incision. So if you do ranged attacks, it reduces melee resistance for 3% for 2 and 6% for 3. And then the same with quick incision. I think we've just fallen into the same problem. I think all these 3% for 2s need to be 4%. It's just like not enough. It goes away too quickly, and it just kind of doesn't do enough. I can't remember what we were just talking about. Maybe it was sharpshooter and a different one. But I think this could benefit from being 4%. I used it. I wanted to test it. I used it with my mercs. So if a henchman lands 3 shots, that's minus 9% melee resistance. That's like an insult, right? If you do blunderbusses, you can get this on a lot of people. And it starts to add up. Like these matter. If you stack it with mastery and basic, you really can start to strip melee resistance. So let's see, break defense. I did it again. Let's go to the actual website. So this it's weird because it's been flipped. Actually, Yeah, I mean the images aren't exact. Maybe this is the way it always was. Break defense because it's a shield cracking. The other one you had to like hit in melee and it reduced more melee. It was like, what are you even talking about? So it's good it was fixed. I think this is okay. It's at that okay level. It's usable. It's viable. I don't know if like the mastery is that much better. It's like certain build dependent. But if you're doing it, it does work. It comes back to that nerve shot, right? You can see if like he makes nerve shot just like range kidney strike, he reduces 20% dodge and parry and melee resistance at basic, and then 30% dodge, parry, and melee resistance. If that's what it is, something like that, I think is what it'd be. And then you stack on to that person that has mastery nerve shot, you also giving them break defenses. You can see where you could really like, okay, Augur, you want to play this fucking game? I know you got perception and all that, but I'm going to catch your ass and I'm going to breach you down, and you're eventually going to lose your melee resistance. I think, unfortunately, we're not there, but I think this would start to move these things up. So I think it's good on a certain build. It's one step up above there. It's not used a lot, but again, I don't think these debuff archers are used a lot. Um, and this is the perfect example of one, like using dismay runes, using innervation runes. In this one, you're just slowly chipping away melee resistance, which is going to help everyone else do more damage. So there can be some impressives that we just talked about, the anticipation ogre, and it was a good build. This is literally the hard counter. All right, he's gaining melee resistance. I shoot you, you lose exactly what you gained. You lose it. You lose it. So you're net negative. You've just hard countered that build. Okay? So that's good. So it's got a use. It's just kind of not in the meta right now, but it's definitely got a use. Quick Incision, since there's this 30% ranged penalty the second you get into combat, this one's like slightly better than break defenses because it's going to help your archers land more of these shots because they take an immediate penalty, right? So it's almost like if you entered melee, you instantly gain 30% melee resistance by entering melee or something like that, or by shooting a bow. I don't know. It's hard to think of the mental flip of what that is. So this is going to help all your debuff archers or just any archers do damage, and to kind of remove those engaged in combat penalties, because this is something you're using in combat. So each time you hit, if you do 5 hits, you've removed the engaged in combat penalty. Is a way to look at it. Now, again, this has that floor. Units have only so much range resistance, so it doesn't actually per se work like that. And in that sense, I think Quick Incision is worse as well. A unit only has so many range resistance. If you get it to 0, it still has that 30% benefit being in combat. So I think Quick Incision, I don't know a way to like fix that, right? Would there be a way to change this where if you hit the target, it increases ranged hit chance, which is a big difference than reduces range resistance, right? And so that sense, I used it on my warriors. I don't think it brought much to the table. Skaven could use this to try to land their poisons more, but I'd rather just maybe use that kidney strike because you probably get to that basement really quickly with the kidney strike. So I think it's bad. I think they're both just bad. This is probably really bad. I think there's just better ways to get there, and since it's only reducing range resistance and not chance to hit, it's an important distinction. And you're not going to see many people take Quick Incision, unfortunately. You're better off just taking the one-off things, using the aims, the overheads, the kidney strikes, using, like, the Magister can put a cloud out that reduces ranged hit chance by 30%. There's other ways to do this. Reducing stats on the opponent. I don't think you're going to, especially at 2 and then 4 for Mastery. I struggle to see this one. I wanted it to be okay, but this is an important distinction, is the range resistance. It takes away range resistance. Fatality. So this is for the crit build. This is like literally right into the Vital Strike guy. The other warband that just loves this is Blood Offering, or Skaven with maybe their Art of Silent Death. But you have Blood Offering and Fatality. You Blood Offer, you gain 10% hit chance. You hit the guy, you gain another 10. So just by Blood Offering with a cult unit, you gain 20% hit chance. You also have your Vital Strike like Mutant, right? So you can see where the Mutant would Blood Offer, has Fatality, starts Vital Striking. I don't know what else to say about that. That's pretty fucking good. There's times where I actually have used Basic, even on like on a Impressive, because there happen to be 2 skill points left, and 5% is 5%. That's like a rune. That's like the Havoc rune, right? That's not terrible. It's one of those skills where you want to crit. You know, more is more, and it's a good thing. So it's maybe okay. I wouldn't say it's not good. 5% is 5%. And this thing like lasts 2 to 3. Like ignore it. It basically lasts. If you're missing, you're missing. Like Jesus Christ. But you're gonna keep hitting, right? So it's basically once you land your first hit, you're gonna have 5% more hit crit chance. I would say this one's just good. I wouldn't say it's like some amazing thing. And Elias doesn't like it. I mean, 10% is 10%. And then you take it with the Vital Strike, which is right here, right? They're at the good level. I think like melee crit builds still just kind of struggle. But I'm never disappointed. It's like the most cookie cutter build. You make a spawn. Why can't I think of the name, right? I keep wanting to say Crypt Horror, but a spawn, right? The cult's impressive. You give it Blood Offering. You give it Fatality. You give it some Havoc armbands. You give it naturally high accuracy and weapon skill. And you just crit the fuck out of everybody. You just go out there. The Rat Ogre, you take Art of Silent Death. You put on some bracers. You put on Fatality. And you just crit the fuck out of people. That 10% shows up. It shows up. You're 1 out of 10 times more critting people. Because it's like right in the juicy spot of where it will show up. Most of your crits are like 20 to 80%. So that 10% is literally 10%. A lot of times it's like, that 10% got me up to 5%. Great, I finally am critting. Or that 10% got me over from 95 to 95. It didn't do fucking anything. This is getting you literally 10% more crits, in my opinion. %, for 6 skill points is... No, I mean, if this is a crit build, this is what you're doing. And like he said, it's like something it's like armor. You invest in it, the more you're getting back. In this case, you're critting 10% more of the time, quite literally. And if an Impressive attacks 5 times, you know, you're going to crit once more every 2 turns, right? On average. The thing is, once it's actually better math, because once you crit, you most likely can stun, and now you've gained 20% more crit chance. So like if you can get that crit, and then you crit it, and then you gain 20% more crit chance. So it's like you're gaining 30% more crit chance, right? It's just like it keeps feeding back into itself. Then other people can come fuck them up, right? So it's really good on Impressives. I think for the Mutant, like there's very few, but like heroes that are crit melee units, it's really good. Like the Cult loves this skill. It just... So we talk about the Brethren. It's not as good, right? Because you want to do that ambush, right? But say you do get your first ambush and you crit somebody, some poor bastard, in an onslaught or prowl position. Now you got that Fatality up, and the next one you get is really going to... You know what I mean? It starts to just feed into it. But like Blood Offering plus this, and Art of Silent Death plus this. Even Sisters, they have Sigmar's Might. They have the Wolf Priest. They can gain 20% just from spells. Once you've gotten over the crit resistance, 10% is literally 10%. And crits very much land in that like 10% to 95% range. They're never over 95. And once you're starting to get over that 10%, it matters. Every little bit matters. And you'll start landing crits. So I think it's a good skill. It's not great elite or godly. I mean, for a crit build, it probably is up till elite and stuff. And then you get to underdog, which is the same thing. I don't like underdog. Like, underdog is difficult to set up is the biggest problem. And there's a few skills that you need to be engaged by too. The Mercs have one where it increases armor and melee resistance. The Templar inherently has one. You can do it. You can find choke points, put your fat ass impressive out there, take fatality on underdog, and pretty reliably with blood offering be shitting out 40% crit just by existing. On top of all the other ways you can get crits, and I don't even think you need to take vital strikes at this point. You're inherently just like wrecking things. So it works just fine in PvE. I think in PvP, once I've got my melee resistance unit on your unit, I don't want to put another one. It's sneaky. You won't figure it out until you do. It's so funny how many times I'll be fighting the AI. Like I remember this warrior priest in particular. I attacked him with a unit. I'm like, all right, let's just stomp this guy down. I put another, and suddenly I'm looking at he crit me on his turn. I'm like, what the fuck was that chance? And he had underdog, right? I think he maybe even accidentally had fatality too. Talking about this, so like the AI when they have it are dangerous because they take this skill. And once you sneakily find out, oh my god, this guy had this, it doesn't flash up in front of you. You have to just keep checking the stats and be like, whoa, how'd that guy get 45 crits suddenly? What just happened? Well, it's underdog. I think it's this little dagger, right? So I think basic, no one's doubling up a henchman. I don't think I'd ever take it on a henchman, to be honest. You can maybe take the basic if you just happen to have 2 skill points. I could see a scenario. I don't know. I don't think it's good. Maybe that has to be 15% or something. And I would say this is just okay. Because again, the narrow use window, trying to set it up is kind of fucking awkward. It's twice as strong a fatality. So there's probably a reason it's each are one step below fatality. I didn't plan that, but looking at it, it's yeah, that does kind of make sense. Because setting it up is a lot more complicated. So if it's more complicated, it's worth twice as much, but it's more complicated. And then here's the problem. I want to kill the units. That's why I'm critting them. So I've crit him, and now he's dead and underdog's gone again. That starts to be the problem too. You don't go, oh, okay, great, he's at 10 HP. It's also if you're critting something, you're fucking it up, right? It's really easy to kill them. And it's if they're stunned, keep smashing its face in. Strike when the iron's hot. So it's easy for it to fall off again, where fatality literally just is always existing. So, and then you get into the deep wounds, which is when I crit, I want them to feel me. I think basics is bad. I don't think anyone's taking this. Maybe really bad. If you do the math on it, 20% is not a lot. We'll take literally the best case scenario of a great hammer. 72 damage. You're doing 14 more damage on your crit. Let's say it's of slaying, that's 80. You're doing 16 more damage when you crit. That's a lot, but you have to crit. That's hard to do. And if you're taking this, it's most likely probably on a henchman. You'd probably want to go all in. If you're taking it on a hero, okay, maybe you had a slot left over. I think I'd rather do something like the basic fatality. I'd actually want to be critting versus, and now deep wounds, right? And there's a difference there. Or I'd take resilient. I've talked about things like this, something that might make me get there or survive or do something longer. If I'm taking a basic thing on a hero, I'm probably not taking this deep wounds for best case scenario, 16 damage. Most of the times we're talking about, hey, I'm a Skaven and I carry a fucking dagger or a sword that doesn't do anything. And now I got deep wounds and you're going to take 8 more damage. Yeah, I think some people like deep wounds, but I'm showing why I don't with the math. It significantly buffed from vanilla where it truly was garbage. I think this is good. It's not up here because there's this caveat that always comes with it when you crit. And nothing says chaos like when you crit. When you don't crit, you get fuck all, and you've spent 6 skill points to get nothing. And if you're walking around with something that's, it was kind of like what we talked about, Jaw Striker, like you have a 6 skill point thing, and it's doing absolutely nothing for you. Congratulations. That's the worst case scenario, but that scenario can occur many times. So that's a bad scenario. And that will always keep it out of the top. Now, when you do crit, you're going to fuck up this unit, right? So, am I at the wrong? We can now, you can just do the math. It was what, 8 times 6 with that great hammer. You're doing significant more damage. Oh my god, I can't believe I have to sit here and do the 38, right? You're doing 38 more damage. No, 36 more. What am I talking about? It's 40 is 8 times 5, and then you add 8 more. It's 48 more damage. Woo! 48 more damage on a Great Hammer crit with deep wounds. That is a lot of damage. And the thing is, you like take it with also, it's built in brutal. So it's basically, you get the rune brutal or carnage as a passive. And these start to stack up. And where does this matter? I talked about ranged builds, and we're talking about them again. This guy with Vital Shot, this is his only way to increase damage now is deep wounds. Now, again, I have it here because you have to crit. And this category has always been like, it's a strategy, right? It's a team strategy, and it's not always being used. That's good. It's good when it happens, but you're not always getting something out of it. So you have to crit, and then you get the benefit out of it. And you have to make a build around it, too. There's extra parts where you just don't plug this in and walk out, and I got deep wounds. You're fucked now. Look at me with my deep wounds. So it usually takes teammates setting things up. The build has to be totally set up around it, and then you hope it goes, and then boom, you're getting it. And that's how I see it. So this is just too minuscule to matter. This gives you significant, once you get it, it hits. But it's not like, it's not destroying things. And it's best used, in my opinion, with these range builds, as that's their only way to increase the damage that they can output. In that sense, it's really good for them. And then you get to Weak Spot, which is the sister of Precise Strike. Precise Strike plus Weak Spot, 60%. You can see where these are in the same category together and why they work together. Precise Strike being 9 and 12. This is now 9 and 15. So if you want to turn your unit into a spear, you have to take 15 accuracy and master your weak spot. Right? I want my unit to have double spears. There you go. I'm rounding, of course. But 30 plus 29, 30 and 30. You know, one's a little higher than the other, but you get the point. My unit is now a walking double spear unit. There's a lot to be said for that. Who's taking this? Impressives. Like, they're the units we talked about, like champions could probably take it. Champions are core Merc Daredevil units. It's the Daredevil unit of Mercs. I'm sad we don't see more of them. I think the Ogre takes his spot. But him getting 15 weapon skill and 15 accuracy, and the Warlock getting Curse of Lead, which shits on your dodge, and then he takes weak spot. You know, he can use he can really just fuck over your dodge. A lot of people don't think, you know, that champion, he really fucks up your stances, doesn't care about them. Well, there you go. It's right there, just waiting. I think that's a build that's underutilized, and that he just does that. The Skaven, they can get here, like the Assassin Adept in particular. You can suffer a little less melee hit chance on like the Black Skaven and get here with 15, and then try to up his hit chance in other ways. So I think this is very much starting to fall. Like, not everyone's taking this, but it's good. It's in the build you use it in. I don't want to say it's great. If a unit's not in a stance, it's just like deep wounds. You're not using any part of it. If you're coming up and attacking a unit that had no SP or no stance, or a henchman broke its stance, you are getting the daredevil part out of it, which is where it starts to could be moved a little bit here, because you're always going to have that dodge bypass. So maybe it's a little more there. This is maybe okay because it's useful if you can afford that. Like, I can't afford 15 accuracy. That's still something. Actually, I'm looking at that. That needs to be 15. That's not good. I don't think anyone's going to take basic weak spot. I think it kind of needs to be 15 for it to matter. Like, I think there's just other things I would rather take. Like the dodge rune, like rune of speed, right? It's going to get you there. Very rarely are like, if I just had this 10% more dodge, there's very few units, especially in like PvP, where it's like that 10% makes a difference. It's usually like a heavy armored unit you're just going to fuck up, or this dodge tank that's trying to lock you down and you really need to get through it. Yeah, some can't, which, like, I think about a possessed. He gets the extra arm. He could maybe take weak spot, but the problem with the possessed is he also has less skill points, so he generally can't take it anyway. The black Skaven could, again, if you want more hit chance, you could take this. And then that with the spear, but you hit in the black hunger, right? You're hitting that 60% wall, and you're starting to, like, a true dodge build's going to fuck you up unless you, like, then now have to throw on Wither or Sorcerer's Curse or throw down Oil to really start getting into function, and you're like, ugh, this isn't good, which is why you're not good. So I just think those numbers are too low for the costs involved. That 30% though is good. Like, it's a mastery skill you want to go to. Like, you're going to get significant return out of it. You're going to take that. You can take that with the precise strike, for example, and really know you're going to get past. You're going to take black hunger. You're going to take spears. You're going to have the extra arm guys. I think it's kind of awkward as hell for the possessed to get there. Again, this I think falls much more into Daredevil Impressive, which is a very significant category of shit kickers. And then they would love to have this. They can get 15 accuracy, no problem, with still having good weapon skill, and they'll just pop that in there with their Daredevil. Like my Maiden, okay, cat's out of the bag. I'm building this Maiden. We already saw it. She has it. She has Sigmarite hammers, which have dodge bypass built into them. She has Blessing of Athleticism, which has dodge. So this is that unit where it makes a big difference, because she can stack a few of her own dodge bypasses, toss in the weak spot. She's capable of throwing down her own oil, which makes her very special. Or not oil, sticky sludge, which significant dodge bypass. So a Maiden loves this skill. She can just fuck up units with it. So yeah, I don't know what the plan is with like units or warband skills, or it'd be interesting to do warband skills. Probably like a destruction warband skill, and then like order, and then like DLC. There's so many. You can't do them all at once. Again, thanks to Mork for making these. It's fun to do. It's interesting to look back, and I did this last time. Ballistic has like a lot of extremely elite skills, and that's like not a shock, right? But I've talked about what like holds Ballistic back is in PvE. It is truly destructive. Like, it's people talk about it on the forum. It's like, yeah, I just take these range teams and fuck up the AI. It's like, yeah, you will. You definitely will. PvP, though, I could just push you against the wall and you're fucked. But a huge portion of this game is PvE, and these range skills will do just wonders for you in PvE. The passives, I even said, I don't like a lot of the passives. I think they're too weak. But if this is like the chunk of your category, like passives, like ballistic's probably in an okay way. And then here's the weapon skill. Again, the okay, I always keep talking about the cutoff. Like, everything's pretty good here. Like, it's a good, you want to see like this curve. I mean, it jumps a bit, but I really, in doing these, I think you saw, I kept a lot out of Godly and Elite until I got the ballistics, I guess, because they really are powerful. especially versus the AI. But like that's its own category of like truly amazing things you'll always take on the builds. Like melee resistance, you're always taking defensive specialists. It's not godly because not everyone's taking it, but you're always taking that on a melee resistance build. So that's truly elite. Just like a lot of these, you're kind of always taking on ranged debuffing units, right? And these are just unique. Like it's fun to see the skills that are actually there, like knee shot. I think we had ad rush, introspection. Like those are truly like the skills on all the units I would be taking it. So yeah. And there's some just really bad skills and weapon skill, right? Which is the most literally taken category. It's got to be weapon skill. Like either you're a ranged or melee unit, so you're always going to be taking like melee's weapon skill usually. Like you can argue martials or mentals all the time. You might be dabbling in all of them. And even physicals. Maybe you want strength, maybe you want agility, maybe you want toughness. But you're generally like either going to be a melee or ranged guy, and there's like a big chunk of skills like I'm like, ugh, which forced some of these up even more, right? Or you then dabble into the other stuff. You're taking the mentals and other stuff. And then yeah, the accuracy. A lot of them, it makes sense they'd all end up here because they're really good at being a crit or at their job. So they're slightly better than okay, but then you have to build around them. Like so this isn't like shocking that you're like building around them. And this is just so elite because it's the only way to increase like range damage. And we just talked about how good range damage was. So if I truly want to increase range damage, I have to vital shot you. And sniper shot's not down here, or that'd be kind of up here too, right? And then I think we had sharpshooter up here pretty high. Is that sharpshooter? I think that's sharpshooter, which stacks with the vital shot. So anyway, I'll put these up to YouTube for reference, and I'll publish them on Twitch, and do what you will with them. Poor quick incision. You can look back at the ones I just shat on. Some just live down here, especially here in weapon skill. I don't know where Mork had them, but you can compare. And hope maybe others will do this and talk about it, or just do it and send it in. Like truly mean it. You don't have to explain, and I think it can help paranoia. Just maybe you can send a link. I don't know if it saves. Save or download, I guess, right here means something. And you can publish it on Discord. It'd be fun to talk about your logic and reasoning. Anyway, everyone have a good weekend. I'll be working. I'm going to go enjoy the beautiful weather. It's sunny and 50, which counts for amazing up north. Especially since it was one of those cloudy, low pressure system days yesterday where it just rained but didn't rain for like 24 hours. So I'm going to take the dogs on a nice hike, get some of that rare vitamin D, which hopefully all you northerners are as well. And yes, thanks for being here during it, chatting about it, and we'll take the conversation over to Discord, which you guys can join, I think, by clicking below. Do I have the link? Maybe I don't. Maybe that's my own Discord. But anyway, which I don't really use, so ignore that. See you guys. Yeah, work on those mentals, right? Retaliation. Make it about damage, man. Wasn't that one of these? It's so hard to get retaliation out of the AI. They just use all their OP. And then you're hitting them anyway. It's the AI. I don't know, man. Anyway, we could talk about it on Discord. See you.